All right, you guys. So in this tutorial, what I want to do is go over kitchen cabinets, creating kitchen cabinets in your space. Um, Let me make sure I'm sharing the correct screen. Yeah. So this is where I've gotten so far. In the last tutorial, we went over creating doors and windows. And so I went ahead and, as I mentioned before, I was going to be modeling this along with you guys. So this is what I've came up with. Some windows and some doors. On this side, I put a series of kind of a 3-panel sliding door. I have a two-panel sliding door on this side, and then a bunch of windows throughout the entire space. If I hide my roof here, I went ahead and I developed or added a couple interior spaces, interior walls here, with the idea that this would be my kitchen. I'm sorry, this would be my bathroom, and this would be a closet, and then this is going to be the place where I add a bed, and then I figured I might add like a desk later on down the line, right inside here for maybe an office or something like that, and then I would have the stairs coming up here. If I hide my roof, I went ahead and added my stairs on this side. So I'd be coming up over here and then going into the space. So that's where I've gotten. This is kind of where everyone should be at this point. It doesn't have to follow, you don't have to add the windows that I've added in the locations that I've added, but you at this point should have added the doors, the necessary doors and windows within your model, right? If you haven't done that, I'd say take a minute and add those doors and windows. And you might have to rewatch the previous tutorial. But if you are at this point, then we can go ahead and move on. And the next step is really going to be to add the cabinets. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hide my roof here because I really want to, as I was adding the windows and the doors and kind of beginning to play around with my spaces and the programs, I kind of developed or kind of figured that I was going to add my kitchen right inside here. Okay, so I want to go ahead and add my kitchen cabinets inside here. Now, the kitchen cabinets we're going to model ourselves. Okay, we're going to do it ourselves. And then one of the reasons is because a lot of times kitchen cabinets are they're custom. They're either custom made or they're kind of a kit of parts where you could get them in varying sizes, and then you just kind of interchange them from, maybe one area you might add a 30-inch and then a 24-inch, and then another scheme you have a 30 and a 21 and an 18-inch with wide cabinets. So cabinets are always kind of interchangeable as far as the widths goes and things like that. Now, I did post a short or brief little kind of general dimensions in the Canvas modules called general dimensions and distances for residential projects. And the first kind of section that I cover is actually kitchens, specifically kitchen cabinets. So the standard widths, so I'll go over this and then we'll talk about it, or I'll kind of show the examples in SketchUp as we're modeling this. But the standard width of cabinets start at 12 inches wide. Okay. From there, they continue to go up by 3 inches. So their widths can be 12 inches, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, and 30. After that, from 30, it'll jump to 36 and 42. So they jump 6 inches once it hits the 30-inch mark. Okay. These are standard sizes. So anything within anything in kind of groups of threes. So again, 12, 15, 18, 21, and so on. What I mean by standard size is that you can go to almost any cabinet shop and they'll go ahead and make these, or they might already have some of these some of these widths pre-made. Okay. Now from there, you can go into custom. And then at that point, you have someone, a cabinet maker come in and they'll actually measure and they'll say, well, this can be 15.5, or this can be 21.75. It'll be what it has to be, right? But what we want to do in this class is just kind of work with the standard widths of cabinets. Now, typically the widths are really the only thing that changes. The depth and the height of kitchen cabinets are almost always the same. And so they're all 24 inches deep, and then they're 34.5 inches high. Okay. Typically, what you do is then you add a 1.5 inch countertop. So the countertop is one object, and then the cabinet boxes are a separate object. And then you kind of install the cabinet boxes, and then you add the countertop on top. So the ultimate goal is that the top of your countertop is actually 36 inches high, right? So 34.5 inches for the cabinet height, and then another 1.5 inches for the countertop. So you add those together, and it gives you 36 inches. Okay, that's why I say the width of the cabinets below for the countertop, and then 25 inches deep and 1.5 inches high. I say 25 inches deep, even though in my cabinets, I say that the cabinets are 24 inches deep, right? So you have your cabinets, and then typically the countertop will stick out about 1 inch past the cabinets. Okay. Now, a lot of these things can really get into like custom. We could customize almost all of this, but the numbers I'm giving you are really just kind of standard sizes. Then we go into a range, which is kind of like a stove and an oven. We call that a range. And those typically are about 30 inches wide. Sometimes you can find them 36 inches wide. So they range between 30 and 36. And then you have refrigerators. And refrigerators, both ranges and refrigerators, you do kind of find in a variety of sizes. But a standard, if I was to say what is a standard size, I'd go with a 33-inch wide refrigerator. Okay. And then down below, we talk about bathroom cabinets. So the width is similar to the kitchen cabinets, where they're built in increments of 3 inches, so 12, 15, 18, 21, and so on. However, the cabinets inside of a bathroom are actually 21 inches deep as opposed to 24 inches deep. So they're not as deep as a kitchen cabinet, and they're also not as high. So kitchen cabinets are actually higher than bathroom cabinets. Bathroom cabinets are 29.5 inches high, and then you add another 1.5 inches. So that's your ultimate kind of countertop height is 31 inches high, right? So 31 inches off of the ground. However, the countertop itself is still, that's a typo. It's not 25 inches deep. It would be 22 inches deep, because you would still have an extra inch as an overhang past the cabinet. Okay. So I'm going to take this information and use it to design and to build my kitchen cabinets. Okay. Now it's entirely up to you on how you want to design your kitchen, and what type or what size cabinets you want to use. However, you should stick to the standard size, the standard width. So that means all of your cabinets should be in increments of 3 inches. So it should be either 12 inch, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, or 36 and 42. Okay, that's typically as wide as you can get in a kitchen cabinet. So let's switch over to SketchUp. All right. So this is the area that I want to place my kitchen in. Okay. Now, once I start working on the interior spaces, and you'll see this to be true also when we get into stairs, one, we definitely want to hide the ceiling so that we could look inside here. But two, you notice how even if I get close, I'm starting to run into walls. Okay. And that can become annoying and frustrating to work in. So what I'm going to do is actually change what we call the field of view of on the camera lens that's allowing me to look into my project. So in other words, think of it as we're able to change the lens on our viewport. And so what I'm going to do is go up to camera, and then down here we have a tab that says field of view. And then I'm going to get a little magnifying glass. It looks very similar to the magnifying glass that I have for a zoom. And what I'll do is I'm going to left click. So I'm going to hold down, and then I'm going to move the cursor down. Okay, I'm still holding down on the left click, and then I'm moving the cursor down and then moving it up, right? And so then you're able to see how the lens itself is somewhat distorting the image, right? And so now like I could get really exaggerated over here, or I could kind of squish the image itself. Now, nothing is actually happening to the model. None of my dimensions, the perspective or the proportions or any of that stuff is happening to my model. The model itself is staying the same. What's changing is kind of adding a fisheye lens to the camera that's allowing us to see this. If we look down here on the bottom right corner where it says field of view and it says 12.71 degrees, that's the indication of essentially the scope or the angle that we're able to see through one side. Okay. Now, typically we can see the actual kind of, I forget actually what the peripheral eye is, but it's not 180 degrees. I think it's 150. Don't quote me on that. However, if we divide 150 in half, that gives us a range of 75 degrees. So if we're talking about kind of the real human eye, what would it actually look like? I will typically set the field of view down to around between 70 to 80 degrees. So I'm going to type in 75, enter. Okay. So again, to do that, we're going to go up to camera, field of view, and then I'll just type in 75, enter. Right. And now what that's going to allow me to do is kind of zoom out a bit more. Right. And it gives me a more realistic view of as if I was actually inside the space. Okay. Now, again, if we ever wanted to, we could go up to field of view and like really distort the view here. And sometimes I'll actually do this if I want to have more space to be able to kind of pan around and not run into any walls. And then what I'll do is I'll go back field of view and actually go back to say 75 degrees. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead and work in 75 degrees just because it's nice and I'm not running into too many walls. All right. So the first thing is actually going to be to kind of block out my cabinets. So I'm going to go 24 inches away from the edges, because remember, if you look at that handout on Canvas, I said that they're 24 inches deep. All right, so I'm going to go 24 inches on all sides. It's 24 over here, 24 over here, and I'm going to go 24 over here. Okay. I'm going to go with kind of a U shape. And I'm thinking I definitely want to have the sink in front of this window right here. So the kitchen sink is going to be in here. And I'm kind of leaning more towards the refrigerator being somewhere on this side, which then means that I'm probably going to lean in towards having the kitchen stove and range right inside here. All right, so I'll have a sink, a stove, and a range. I'm going to go ahead and pull a guide right there along that edge. Okay. And And then I'm going to go and just create a rectangle over here, create one over there, and then I'm going to create another one over here. And right now, really what I'm doing is just selecting the massing so that I can play around with it first. So I'm going to delete these lines that intersect between these rectangles so that I get one surface. And then I'm going to push pull this up 36 inches, because remember the top of my countertop is 36 inches. Okay. Once we kind of get the form and the shape that we want, then we're going to go ahead and kind of build these cabinet boxes. Or we're going to manipulate our massing here. Okay. So this is a U-shaped kitchen. Okay. Now, so then I'm assessing it. I'm analyzing, do I like it? Do I not like it? What do I think? I kind of want the refrigerator closer onto the inside. So the way I have it here, I would have to place the refrigerator over here. And I feel like that's a little bit too much in this space. So I'm going to move this in 36 inches. And I moved it in 36 inches because I had said that the refrigerator is 33 inches wide, right? That's one of the dimensions in the Canvas handout. But now that I see it, I'm really close to this edge here. So I might as well just move this and align it so that it ends right there. And then it gives me, kind of went outside. Then it gives me a little bit more space to add a refrigerator inside here. So I'm going to go and stick with this. Okay. And I'll say, all right, this is going to be my kind of the massings of my kitchen countertop, right? I can make sure that the height works and make sure that there's no issue with the depth of my counters or of my cabinets. The next step is to actually go ahead and push all of these front surfaces in by 1 inch. So I'm going to push pull this in. Now, the reason why we're pushing it in 1 inch is because the door of each cabinet, the cabinet doors, are going to be 1 inch thick. So if my cabinets are 24 inches, the cabinet boxes actually include the door, right? So that means that the box itself of the cabinet is actually 23 inches plus 1 inch for the door. And we're going to model the door separately. So this box itself should actually be 23 inches. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and move this in 1 inch. Select this, move this in 1 inch. Select this and move this in 1 inch. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and select the top here and push pull this down 1.5 inches, right? Because we're going to model the countertop as a separate object as well. Okay, so we're going to go down 1.5 inches, enter. Now, again, the reason why I went the full 24 inches deep and 36 inches deep is because I wanted to get a feeling for the actual overall general massings, right? I already had a general idea of where I wanted and how I wanted my kitchen cabinets to be placed. But in most of the situations, if you're not sure, it's better to kind of have an accurate massing so that you could play around with it and see, okay, do I like this? Do I not like it? And so on, right? Once you've kind of locked in what it is that you want, then we can go ahead and start manipulating that massing so that we could actually build the cabinets properly. I'm going to go ahead and delete my guides now. Okay, so now my massing should be 23 inches deep or 1'11", which they are. And I believe it's 34.5 inches, so 2 feet 10.5 inches high. The next step at this point is to really determine our widths. Okay, and I'm going to do this by working in rows. So I'm going to do this side first, then I'll do this side first, and then this side first. Okay, and what I mean by finding out the width, this is going back to the standard sizes of cabinets, the 12, 15, 18, 21, and so on. And where I'm going to start is, I said that I wanted my kitchen sink to be in front of this window. So I pretty much want to center it to this window. So I'm going to pull a guide. Okay. And now to find the center here, I do have my midpoints. So I can lock the guide in place, hit the right arrow key, and then place the cursor anywhere along the edges here until I get that midpoint, which is that blue dot. And now that guide is placed at the middle, right inside here. Okay. Now my kitchen sink is going to be, I'm going to allow for a 3-foot, 36-inch kitchen sink. So that means if I want the center of my sink to be here, I'm going to want to go 18 inches on one side, 18 inches on the other side, so that the overall is 36 inches. So I'm going to go 18 this side, 18 on this side. Okay. From here, I could go ahead and measure, my distance from there to there, which is 2 feet, 1 inch. Okay. Now, the corners are really kind of the trickiest parts to cabinets. And that's because in cabinets, we have a thing called scribes. When it comes to kitchen cabinets, we remember that we have the doors. And so the doors are going to stick out 1 inch. So yes, I have 2 feet, 1 inch of space, but remember, I'm going to have to add 1 inch of door over here. So I actually only have 2 feet of space. On top of that, I do want to have a little bit of room to be able to open the door, right? We don't want the door running into another door. We don't want the door, when we swing it open, to get jammed up because it's really connected to that door, right? So although I can add a 2-foot, I could probably fit a 2-foot cabinet box inside here, I'm going to go 3 inches shorter. So 21 inches. So instead of 24 inches, which is 2 feet, I'm going to go 21 inches. And that's going to give me enough space on the edges. It's going to give me enough space on the edges so that I can comfortably open and close the doors and not worry about them running into one another. So I'm going to go 21 inches in this direction. From there, I am going to go out, let's say 24 inches. And at this point, I'm kind of picking these numbers somewhat at random. And then let's see, I'm going to measure this. What do we have? We have 3 feet. I'm just going to divide that up in half and go 18 and 18. So now I went 18 over here, 1'6", and then another 1'6". There we go. Okay. So now we have, with the exception of this guy, let me delete this guy. Now we have our actual cabinet boxes, right? Or how we want to place them and space them out. So from here, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and use these vertical guides and place them right at these intersection points. Okay. Now, one of the things about kitchen cabinets is that they do have what we call a toe kick. Okay. And essentially it's the space underneath the cabinet box so that your feet can fit inside comfortably, so that they're not hitting the cabinet box and then you're not kind of leaning over. You're not leaning over to kind of work on the countertop. So to do the toe kick, we're going to go ahead and pull a guide. We're going to go 4 inches up. So 4 inches above the ground. Okay, we're going to go ahead and place a guide. And then I'm going to use the line tool and I'm going to draw a line from one side all the way to the next. So now I have 2 surfaces. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and take this surface and use the push pull. And I'm going to pull this out 4 inches. Right. And so now I have the toe kick. Once I have the toe kick, I can go ahead and use the line tool and actually just draw a line at these locations, right? Wherever I spaced out my cabinet boxes, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So now these cabinet boxes have, the cabinet massing is really kind of divided up into individual surfaces. Once I've drawn my lines, I can pretty much just delete my guides. So I'll go ahead and delete guides. I'm going to select one of the surfaces, use the offset tool, letter F, and I'm actually going to offset this 1 inch. Okay, technically, actually, no, let's do it correctly. It'll be 3 1/4, right? Cabinet boxes are 3 1/4 inch thick. So we're going to go 3/4. Okay, if you're not sure, look at the bottom right corner where it says distance, 3/4. You could also enter it in decimal form, so 0.75, and it'll do the same thing. So I'll hit enter, and now we have a set of offset lines that are 3/4 inch from the cabinet box. Okay, and now the question is, how far deep do I go? Well, we're also going to add a 3/4 inch back piece on the back side here. So I need to go to the edge plus 3/4 in. So the way to do that is I pull a guide from the back side and I go 3/4. Right. So now I have a guide that's 3/4 inch from the back here. Now I have something to reference. So I'll use the push pull and I'm going to pull this back. I'm just going to place my cursor on the guide and click. And there we go. We have our first cabinet box. So I'm going to use the offset tool. And I'm actually at this point going to double click. When using the offset tool, and this is true for the push pull as well, when using either one of these commands, when you double click, it actually inserts the previous input. So the previous input I had was 0.75. So whenever I come to a new surface, instead of having to click, start the whole process again for the offset, I can really just double click and double click and double click. Okay. Then when I use the push pull, I'll go ahead and push pull it back. At this point, I can go ahead and move the cursor and reference this surface. But the push pull has the same cool trick with the follow me. So I could actually just double click, double click, double click. Okay. Now, occasionally with the double click, the push pull, instead of going back, it's actually going to go forward, right? And so sometimes that is one of the annoying things about it. It's not always 100% reliable. If it does come out forward, then it just means you're going to have to do it manually and push it back that way. Okay. But at this point, we now have our cabinet boxes on this side. Okay. Now I'm going to stop here. And I'm not going to group it because all of these are going to be pieced together as one object. However, if I wanted to, you could build them out as separate groups, right? I'm pretty set on my cabinets being here, which is why I'm going to go ahead and make it as one massing. But if you're not sure, then it might actually even be better if you make one cabinet its own, or make each cabinet its own individual group. Because the reality is that this box here, this cabinet box would be built as one object. This one would be built as one object, and so on, right? And then what they come in, they do is they piece it together. They screw them into one another and screw it into the wall. And that kind of solidifies it and ties it in as one cabinet. But they are actually, in fact, built as individual cabinets. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead and leave mine as is, like this. And then I'll go through this. We'll go ahead and go through this exercise one more time, and then I'll pause the recording and I'll do this on my own. This way you're not having to watch every single thing that I do. So again, we're going to, I'm going to go ahead and place the cursor at the center here. And I think I'm going to go with a 30-inch range right in the center here. Actually, yeah, let's go with a 30-inch range. So that means half of 30 inches is 15 in one side, 15 on another side. That's going to leave me with 2 feet 4 inches, but remember it's really 2 feet 3 inches, because we have to account for the door that's going to be on this side. So I'm going to go, we can go with, let's just play it safe and we'll go with 2 feet. Oops, got to pull a guide. Now we're being really cautious with the 3-inch scribe on all sides. That's really generous. We really don't need that much space. Really, within, you could get away with just 1 inch on all sides. So 3 inches is kind of playing it safe, but at the same time, we're using standard size cabinets, and so that typically is what ends up getting complicated. If we went ahead and used custom cabinets, then we could kind of bring that area a bit closer. But I'm going to go, let's see, what do we have over here? It should be actually the same. Yeah, so let's go 2 feet on this side. All right. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and use the tape measure and go up 4 inches. Use the line tool, go from one side to the other, grab this surface and use the push pull, go back 4 inches. And then I'll go ahead and use the line tool, come straight down. Now you could also use the rectangle tool, and that's going to create 2 lines at the same time. And remember what we covered in the past, that lines, when they overlap one another, actually merge into one another. So it's not like I have 2 surfaces here where I've created a rectangle on top of the surface that was there. SketchUp actually merges it all together as one. So if I was to delete this, I'm able to look inside. So that's kind of the nice thing with using the rectangle tool. It's one command will create 2 lines for you. All right. So at this point, I could use the offset tool. Actually, you know what? I take that back. This area here, this is the range. The range itself is a separate appliance that gets pushed inside here. So we actually don't have a cabinet box inside here, which means we have to eliminate this area here. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and take this push pull, or take this surface here and push pull it back. And it's going to stop at 4 inches, right? So this is SketchUp's way of telling you, hey, you have an intersecting line here. I'm going to go ahead and stop it here for you, right? At this point, I can go ahead and, now that these 2 are aligned, I'm going to pull a line down here, put another line down here. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm dividing up these surfaces. So now I could take this and I could push pull this back however far I need to. And since both the top and the bottom surfaces are going to be pushed back, I'll go ahead and delete this one line. And so now I have this as a surface. I'll go ahead and push pull this all the way back over there. Now, again, when you push things back and you reference the back edge, most of the time the surface will get deleted, right? Most of the time the surface itself will delete itself. But in some cases it doesn't. And so in those cases, you're going to have to do it yourself manually. And I'm going to delete the top line, delete the bottom line. And there we have it. Okay. So I'm going to leave this little space for my range. And I'm going to go ahead and create a cabinet box here. So I'll use the offset tool, double click, and then use the push pull. I'm going to push pull this in. Actually, I need a reference point. So I'll go pull a guide out, 0.75, which is 3/4. Use the push pull and pull this back over here. Do the same thing over here. I'm going to offset, use the push pull and double click. And there we have it. Okay. So now at this point, I could go ahead and delete my guides. And we're beginning to see kind of the beginnings of a kitchen cabinet. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording and then do this side on my own so that you guys don't have to work, or you guys don't have to watch that. And then afterwards, we'll go ahead and come back and continue developing the cabinets. All right, so I went ahead and just added some boxes over here on this side. And as I just did that, I realized I didn't account for the scribe on this side. Lucky me. So let's see, I set this at 2 feet 8. Oh, I did, I just didn't offset it. So let's go ahead. Sorry, now you guys are gonna have to watch me make my adjustment. So it's 2 inches, which is fine because it's typically, watching how to fix certain issues is also useful. So I need to push this cabinet box 2 inches in. And so instead of actually kind of moving, trying to grab this cabinet box and move it, all I'm going to do is move the surfaces inward. So I'm going to go 2 inches in and then 3/4 in. So now I have 2 guides. So now that's going to tell me that the inside here is going to go to there. And then if I wanted to, I could go ahead and add a line right there. And then that's going to tell me this is where the cabinet box is. Okay. So now I have my cabinet boxes. Notice that I still have not grouped anything. Okay. If you have grouped things, I would probably ungroup everything at this point, because you really shouldn't have anything grouped just yet, because essentially this is all one object. The only reason why you would group anything is, I know earlier I had said if you wanted to build this as one box, you could build this as one group, or and build this as one group, then you can go ahead and do that. However, my concern is really where your kitchen sink is going to be placed, okay? Because we're going to download a kitchen sink and we're going to plop it inside here. But if you imagine, if I had a sink, a kitchen sink, and I was going to place it inside here, well, I can't really do that because I have the countertop, or I'm sorry, right now I have the box, the cabinet box right here, right? And so then you'd end up having you'd have the sink and the the top of the cabinet running into one another. So what I want to do right now is just draw a rectangle on the top, wherever I imagine my cabinet box, or I'm sorry, wherever I imagine the sink being placed. Okay. I didn't specify any specific dimensions. It really doesn't matter. We just need an opening. So I'll use the push pull. Then I'm going to push pull this down. And I'm going to reference the backside or the underside of the cabinet box. And then I have an opening. Okay. Now we still don't know how big, how wide, or the placement of this opening. But just having an opening here and creating the opening right now is going to save us some time in the long run. Later on, once we start installing the actual sink, because it's going to make it easier to just kind of push pull these surfaces, push pull them around the actual sink once the sink is in place. So now that I have the opening for the sink, at this point, this is when I'll go ahead and group. So I'm going to triple click 1, 2, 3, right click, make group, and do the same thing over here on this side. 1, 2, 3, right click, make group. All right. So the next thing is going to be to add my doors. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to create a rectangle, select the surface, push pull it out 1 inch. Triple click, 1, 2, 3, right click, make group. Okay. And there we have our cabinet door. Now, if you want to decorate the cabinet door, you're free to do so as well. So if I was going to use the rectangle tool, and I could push pull this out 1 inch, but then maybe I'll go ahead and offset this 4 inches. Right. And then I could push pull this in 1/2 inch and make group. Right. We can do a rectangle, push pull it out 1 inch. And we'll do something similar. We're going to offset, instead of 4 inches, maybe we go 3 inches. I'm going to push pull this in 1/2 inch. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll create a line right here. Actually, let's go use a guide, and I'm going to go up half an inch. And then I can create a diagonal. Oops. So now that I have this little surface here, and then what we can do, and we're going to use a tool we haven't really used yet. And I'll explain this tool again when we get into the stairs next in the next tutorial. But I'll go ahead and select all of the surfaces. Oh, sorry. I'm going to take this triangle and I'm going to push pull it around all of these surfaces. But I select the surfaces, or push pull it along these lines. So I select the lines first, then I'll go up to Tools, Follow Me, and then I select the surface. And there we have it. Okay, so we have that as an option as well. So I'm going to go ahead and triple click. You could also, triple click, make group. You could also design these however you want to as well. The other thing we can do is, instead of making one big cabinet box or cabinet door, we can make individual drawers. So maybe instead what I'll do is I'll pull a guide from the top and go down 8 inches. And then I'll use the rectangle tool, create a surface just from up here and use the push pull, and I'm going to go out 1 inch. And then I'm going to triple click, make group. I'm going to go ahead and delete my guides. And then what I can do is find the midpoint over here at the bottom on the back side of the door, because I know that the back side of the door is aligned to my cabinet boxes. And I'll go ahead and select this, push pull this out 1 inch, triple click, make group. Okay. And then I'll do the same thing over here. Select this, push pull 1 inch, make group. Okay. And I'll go ahead and just keep this one simple at this point. Do rectangle, push pull 1 inch, make group. Okay. Over here, I'll probably do the same thing, just do another rectangle and push pull this out and triple click, make group. We'll go ahead and speed this up a little bit. Do the same thing over here, push pull this out 1 inch, make group. I could also do a series of drawers. So similar to this, if the actual box itself is 2 feet 6.5 inches, that's 30.5 inches. So that means I can do 3 kind of 10-inch. So if I pull a guide and go up, oops, from the bottom going up, come on, 10 inches, then I could create a rectangle, go from one side to the other, select this, push pull this out 1 inch, and then triple click 1, 2, 3, right click, make group. And then I could use the move tool and I could just copy this right on top, copy this right on top. Now this top one is short by ½ an inch. So then I'll just double click inside this top one, use the push pull. Oops, sorry, I had a setting on here. I was helping another student out. Component edit, take off, hide rest model. All right, so now I'll go ahead and now I could go ahead and see the backside or see the rest of the model. So I could use this as a reference point. And there we go. Now I think both of these were the same width. So I'm actually going to just grab these and copy them over here. And I'll actually do the same thing on this side. There we have it. All right, let me go ahead and just pause this really quickly so that you guys don't have to see this portion. All right, so I went ahead and added the doors over here on this side. I have my scribes over here. I'm going to go ahead and now work on the countertop. So to do that, I'm going to use the rectangle tool, go from one corner to the next. And then I'm going to create another rectangle over here. And then the line that separates both of these surfaces, I'm going to go ahead and just select and delete. So now I have one surface on top. I'm going to use the push pull. I'm going to go up 1.5 inches. Okay. Now, again, our countertop is actually 25 inches. So the countertops typically will go out an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this an inch and bring this out. And that's it. That's all we have to do for our countertop. So I'm going to go ahead and triple click, make group. Now over here, it's going to require one additional step, and that's because we have the little opening here. But I'm going to start off, create the opening, create a rectangle there, create a rectangle here, and then delete the line that separates them. Now this time I'm actually going to create a rectangle over the opening that I created as well. And so that's going to, and then I'll select that opening and delete it. All right, so now I have a form, one single form that actually has an opening for my sinkhole. So then I'll use the push pull, and I'm going to go up 1 inch. And then I'll use the push pull and bring this out 1 inch. Bring this out 1 inch. And then triple click, make group. And there we have it. As far as the cabinets goes, we're done. We have these cabinets that are in place that actually, if we needed to, or if we wanted to, we could go ahead and open them up. And there's an opening on the inside. But more importantly, when we cut any section through this massing or through the model, the cabinets are going to look and feel like cabinets as opposed to just a block kind of massed form. Okay. So now we have our cabinets. We're not entirely done yet because we still want to add our range, our refrigerator, and our sink. Okay. Now, we're not going to actually model these things on our own. We're actually going to download it from the 3D warehouse. The 3D warehouse can be found using the icon right up here. If you leave your cursor on there, it's you'll get a little pull out that says 3D warehouse. The 3D warehouse essentially is an online resource where people have placed their models, their SketchUp models, into this kind of free database where anyone can go into and download those models and place them into their project. Overall, the idea is good. However, we don't know the history of what these objects or where these objects come from. They could be a school project that a 5th grader did. And so therefore, it might not be modeled correctly. It might not be modeled to scale. Or it could be a well-developed, really detailed model. So you really have to be careful with the objects that you download from the 3D warehouse, okay? But let's go ahead and take a look at it. I'm going to go ahead and click 3D warehouse. I'm going to get a new pop-up. Let me make sure that you guys could see. You know what? I'm not sure if you guys could see that pop-up. Let me go. Well, I hope you guys could see the pop-up. Yeah, because there's no other way that I could actually show it. So actually, let me share my screen, my overall screen. All right, so now hopefully you guys can see the 3D warehouse icon right up here. At the top, you could go ahead and type in whatever it is that you're looking for. So I'm actually going to be looking for 30-inch range. Okay. And And here it tells me that there are 339 items found. So there are 339 items that meet this criteria. And as we scroll down, we could see that, okay, Whirlpool, Decor, Sub-Zero, these are all kind of manufacturers. And what I've noticed over the last maybe 5 years or so is that manufacturing companies, especially when it comes to appliances, have picked up on the fact that designers are using SketchUp for their designs. And so instead of having to create a mass ink, they've learned that, hey, if we actually model it and throw it on the 3D warehouse, then we have a better chance of that object being specified for someone else's project. So we're beginning to see more and more manufactured appliances modeled correctly in the 3D warehouse that we can just pretty much plug and play into our SketchUp model. But I'm sure if I scroll farther down, eventually I'm going to find a really poorly made range, right? And of course, right now it's showing me all kind of the manufacturer's ones. Brown, maybe this one. No, that still looks good. Well, eventually you'd end up finding, and here, let's pick something less appliancey. So if we go chair, oh, if we go to models, there we go. This is the stuff I was looking for. So if you stick to products, then it's only going to show you objects that were modeled by a manufacturing company. So you want to stick to products when downloading objects from the warehouse. If we go into models, we could find a lot more options, and you might be able to find some really good options because it seems like some people have modeled certain things very well. And so we can go ahead and say, select this, gives you a little image, and then it tells you the size and when it was modified, right? If I was to select a object from the 3D warehouse, one of the first things I'll do is I'll look at the file size, because this is really the easiest way and the fastest way that your file is going to exponentially grow. So the file size. So the larger the file size, and the reason this is a problem, the larger the file size, the slower the computer or the slower your model is going to react. So it's going to get to a point where it's going to start kind of slowly shaking when you're trying to rotate, or you'll have it do a command and it's going to stall for about 5 seconds before it actually moves to that command. All right. So when the file is too large, then you run into those problems. And it really comes down to how strong your actual computer is and how much can it handle. So when you begin to install or when you begin to add objects in the warehouse, you really want to take a look at the file size and make sure that it's not that big. If there's a KB next to it, then you're good. Okay. It's when you start to get into objects that are larger than, say, 1 or 2 megabytes, so MBs, that's really when you want to kind of reconsider whether or not you really want to add these objects from the 3D warehouse. Okay. Right now, fight the intuition to completely decorate and completely add a bunch of objects from the 3D warehouse. Okay, a lot of students really want to do that. But one, we're not done with the model yet. So I'd hate for you to have to deal with the stairs, with the roofs, with the things we're still going to cover later on down the line. I'd hate for you to kind of have to do all that with a program and with a computer that keeps on stalling, right? So don't do that. If you want to add things at the end, then there will be a time and space for you guys to add that, okay? But right now, we're going to go ahead and add, let's go to the home button. We're going to go ahead and search for a 30-inch range. Stick to products, and then I can go ahead and take a look and see which one do I want. So I'm going to go ahead and select this one. Now, I want you guys to see what a good model from the 3D warehouse looks like. This is modeled by the manufacturer, and when we download it, you'll see it's pretty detailed. But look at the file size, 965 KB, kilobytes. It's not that big of a file, right? So my point is that if you have files that are 2 megabytes, 3 megabytes, and they're not that detailed, then it's probably not a good model. So I'm going to go ahead and click download, and it's going to ask me, do we want to load this directly into your SketchUp model? And I'm going to say yes. If you say no, then it's going to ask you, where do you want to save the file? And it's just going to give you a SketchUp file. I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to wait, and I'm going to place it right here. Okay. If I zoom in, I really want you guys to take a look at the detail here, right? We could take a look and see that there's actually a lot of detail. I mean, we can see the curvature around these objects, the pipe, or not the pipe, the handle here. So there's a good amount of detail. If we go inside here, we even get the grills, okay? Or not the grill, the thing, these things. I can't remember what they're called at this point. But we get to see these as well, right? So it's clearly it's a detailed model, okay? At this point, I'm going to go ahead and just select it and rotate it. So I'm going to use the rotate tool. I'm going to hit the up arrow key so that I'm locked into the blue axis, and I'm just going to click once, click a second time, and rotate it 90 degrees. I'm going to use my move tool, grab it, and place it right there. Okay. And it fits beautifully. Now, if I look down here at the bottom, oh, see, the bottom is kind of sticking into the floor. So let me select it. I'm going to use the move tool, grab it at the bottom corner, and then hit the up arrow key to lock it in place, and then select the surface. There we go. And I'm probably going to want to, it's right on the floor here. So I might want to elevate it just about an inch or so. Because the one thing it doesn't have is the little kind of legs that typically exist on a range like this, right? And the reason why that's kind of important is because the range typically will sit slightly higher than your countertop. All right, let's do that one more time. This time with let's look for a refrigerator. Okay. And I'm going to, let's find Bosch home appliance. Let's go ahead and just pick this one. I'm going to download it directly. Yes. All right. So one of the common mistakes is that students want to try to, when an object comes into SketchUp, you want to try to place it, or students want to try to place it exactly where it needs to be at that moment, right? As soon as it comes in. What I always do is I actually click on it, place it somewhere, and then I investigate the model, make sure it is what I want, and make sure that it was modeled correctly. Once that's done, then I can go ahead and rotate it however I want to. And then more importantly, I can actually grab it from the corner and from the edge that I want to. Now, some objects require a kind of a two-step move, okay? So I want this edge in this corner to really kind of butt up against my countertop here. So what I'm going to do is use the move tool, grab it from this corner, and I can try to find, see, there's no actual real place to connect it to, right? It needs to kind of, see, it gets really complicated to try to place it exactly where it needs to be the first time around. So instead, what I'm going to do is do this in two sections, so in two moves. I'm going to place it right along this edge so that I know I'm up against the edge of the cabinet. Then I'll use the move tool and grab it here at the bottom of the leg. and then hit the up arrow key and lock it in place. So now it's actually touching the floor. And then I'm going to come up here, grab it from the top backside, and hit the left arrow key since I see that green line popping up, and then click on this back surface. And there we have it. All right. And now at this point, now that I see this, this is really bad. Because this refrigerator blocks this window. And it blocks that natural light. So this is definitely kind of a design change that I would, when I see this, I'd say, oh, wait a minute, that's not going to work. So then I'd have to alter and change something out, right? At this point, actually, what I could do if I wanted to is change the window. If I wanted to, I can move the window to the right, move it over here to this side, and that might actually be the better thing to do. Okay, so we have our range, we have our refrigerator. The next step is going to be to add the sink. So let's go back to 3D Warehouse. And I'm actually going to type in 36-inch kitchen sink. Let's see what pops up. So Kohler is well known for providing really detailed and really good sinks. So I'm going to go with, let's take a look at this one. I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to go ahead and select download, load directly, yes. I think that's going to fit. That's a big sink. But we did go with the 36-inch, which is huge. So we're going to go ahead, and what I'm going to do is actually just move it and try to place it just at random right there. Okay. Now remember that we have the countertop, and then we actually have the cabinet down below. Okay, so we have, when we built this thing, we made 2 holes. Okay, and that's because there's 2 objects. So what I want to do, or what I'm going to do here, is find the center of my cabinet box so that I know where to center the sink. So I know that this line was centered. So I'm actually going to just pull a guide and place a guide right there, and then pull a guide along this edge and place it right there. Okay. And that's going to help me determine and help me to kind of place the sink. From there, the sink itself is going to go, remember we have a 1-inch overlap here, and then another inch for the cabinet door before we actually hit the cabinet box. And then the cabinet box, let me hide this. So now we're 2 inches, and then the cabinet box is typically a 3/4 inch piece of wood here. So we're really looking at about 3 inches from this edge, from the top of, or from the edge of the countertop. We want to go at least 3 inches, maybe even 4, but let's go with 3 before we could actually place the sink. Okay. So this is the center now of the space. That's the edge of how close to the countertop edge I can go. So now I'll go ahead and select my sink, use the move tool, and I'm going to find the midpoint, right, which I get right there. And now I can bring this out. Now it's going to be really hard to kind of find that point, right, or get these things to line up. There we go. But let's say, so I was able to find it just by orienting the camera properly. But let's say you didn't have that ability, you weren't able to do that. Then I would do it in 2 moves. I would probably move the sink along one of the guides that it does recognize. So then let's say maybe it picks this one up. So I'll grab it there. Then I'll hit the move, start the move again, hit the up arrow key. I'll move it down, and then do the same thing, grab it here and place it right inside there. Okay. And now when I take a look at this, I can see, okay, it does actually fit inside my box. However, the problem is that the countertop and the cabinet box are running into it. Okay. And this is why I say it's best to, or this is the benefit of having the boxes already inside here. These empty, or the cutouts, because now all I have to do is double click on the countertop, use the push pull, and push pull it to say this edge. Did we go to that edge? Yeah. And then from here, actually, I'd probably go about right there. And then I'd do the same thing over here, use the push pull, bring this out to about right there. Select this surface, push pull this out to about right there. And then do the same thing on this side, push pull this out to about right there. Now we're still not done because we still have that bottom piece. Remember the cabinet box, that too has to get pushed back. Now at this point, it might be easier to just select the sink and hide it. So right click, hide. And now I can just grab this bottom portion, double click to get inside the group, use the push pull and just line it all up. Use the edges here as a reference point. Then do the same thing over here. There we go. And then I'll go back, edit, unhide all. Let's delete my guides. And there we have it. Okay. At this point, you could go ahead and add a sink if you wanted to. So then we'd go back into SketchUp and add, sorry, not a sink, a faucet. So kitchen faucet. I'm just going to go ahead and pick kind of the first one I see. I'm going to go ahead and place it right there and rotate it. I believe I've talked about this in the past. When you're using the move or the rotate tool on a group, sorry, when you use the move on a rotate, sorry, when you use the move tool on a group, we also get these red kind of crosses. And so that allows us to actually select the object and rotate it. So again, that's in the move tool. So using the move tool, but it has to be, it only works when you're on a group. And then from there, when you use the move tool and you hover over the group, then you'll get these red crosses. If you just move the cursor over those red crosses, you'll get the rotate tool. The protractor will pop up, and it'll automatically rotate along the center of the group. So notice how it'll center along the center, it's rotating along the center of the group. At this point, I can go ahead and just kind of move it somewhat in place. Now, again, at this point, I am kind of eyeballing this thing. So I'll use I think by pretending or by showing you the rotate and the move tool, I accidentally rotated this thing in a way I didn't want to. Nope, that's actually just how it came in. So it actually came in off-angled. That's a headache. So let's use the move tool. Let's kind of, this point, we're going to have to kind of eyeball it. We're going to go ahead and select it and make it straight. And then from here, we'll go ahead and use the move tool. Sorry, select the group, use the move tool and rotate it. Notice how it came in off angled. That's going to really mess up. Yep. So this is actually a really great point about downloading objects from the 3D warehouse and not knowing exactly who modeled them and how accurate and how well they were modeled, right? And so this becomes a downside of the 3D warehouse, unfortunately. So let me go ahead and straighten this out a little bit. And at this point, depending on what I'm doing, I might just leave it. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I'll grab it over here, hit the up arrow key so that at least it's flush. And then I might bring it out a little bit. If I wanted to, I could place it, find the center. We had originally the center was based off this back portion anyways. So now I can just grab, I'm already kind of centered there. I'll use the move tool and bring that in place just like that. And there we have it. So now I have, it's actually a bad sink to use. I'm sorry, a bad faucet to use because it has so many edges that when I zoom out, it looks like I'm installing a black faucet, which is not the case. Let's go ahead and go to edit, delete guides. And there we have it. We now have our kitchen with the appliances and our kitchen cabinets. Okay. So you're going to go ahead and create your own cabinets for the kitchen, and you're also going to create the cabinets for your bathroom. Okay, so let me go ahead and hide this. Now I'm not going to walk you through the steps to create the cabinets for the bathroom because it's the same exact thing for the kitchen cabinets. What I will do is take a quick minute and explain the bathtub. The way I would add a bathtub inside here, or a shower, however you want to go about it, is I'd go 32 inches, 32 inches out. And then I would add, if you're going to do a shower, you'd have to add what we call kind of a curb, which is a little step, right? So I would go 4 inches out and then use the rectangle and then use the push pull and pull this out about 4 inches, make this a group. Okay. And then at this point, it's really just doing 2 pieces of glass. So I would use the rectangle tool, come over here. I think hit the left arrow key. And actually, I should probably pull a guide. Because maybe I want the door on this side. So let's start on this side here. So I'll pull a guide on this side. And the door, I'm going to go ahead and make it somewhat of a narrow door, 24 inches. And then I want the height of this glass door to go up and be aligned to the height up here. So now I'll use the rectangle tool and I have a piece of glass or a rectangle there, use the push pull. I'm going to go out 1/2 inch, triple click, make group, and then do the same thing. Go over here, use the push pull, 1/2 inch, triple click, make group. And if I wanted to, I could grab both of these and move these back to the center there, right? And now I essentially have my shower. If you wanted to do a tub, let's go ahead and delete this. Let's go ahead and delete our guides. If you wanted to do a tub, I'd go 36 inches out. Use the rectangle tool. Obviously, this was set up for a shower because the window is farther down. But if I wanted to do a tub, I would grab this, create the rectangle, use the push pull, and I'd go up. Tubs are typically about 22 inches off the ground. So I'd go 22 inches. I would use the offset tool and offset about 3 inches. And then use the push pull and pull this down. Now I wouldn't go the full 22. I'd probably just go about 20 inches. Okay. Now, in its simplest form, you can go ahead and get away with just that. You can also, if you wanted to, grab one of these, grab the back edge down here, use the move tool. And essentially what we're doing is we're moving this line, but by doing that, the surfaces are having to readjust. So now it gives you kind of a little incline for the back support. Okay, and then once you're done, triple click, right click, make group. And now you have your group for your tub. So that's how I would go about creating the the tub or the shower for your bathroom. But at this point, you should now be able to create the bathroom, the vanity, or the cabinets for the bathrooms. Remember that the only difference is that these are 21 inches deep, whereas the kitchens were 24 inches deep. And then the heights on these are 29.5 as opposed to 34.5, right? All of that information is on Canvas in that handout or in that one page. And then you can go ahead and just download your own toilet from the 3D warehouse, okay? And then that's it. That's what you would need in order to complete this portion and be able to move on to the next tutorial. All right. As always, if you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out.